because we'll have to assemble the door. This is just right there.
Okay, now we're recording the sounds.
So if you want to have them check the finish on that cut, that'd be a good time.
Yeah, everybody, come and look at this. Just check this edge out. From a saw. From a saw. Actually, you've got to feel that. I don't think I've ever felt a saw cut. Like there's no saw marks. There's no tooling marks.
No.
So 55 teeth on a 6 1/4 saw, that's a lot of teeth. And that's all you're cutting with it, I bet, too, right? Doors, you're not.
Oh yeah, that's it. Just doors.
Eighth inch?
16th over.
16th round over. And so he's running that, he keeps the bit in it, and just to ease the sharp edge to a 16th round over.
And that's all that router does.
And that's the router's dedicated to doing that. Breaking the edge on virtually anything, right?
Yeah. And we'll use the saw for sheet goods, plywood.
Right.
But just finished material, that's it.
Tell us about your templates, please.
These are Templico hinge templates. And these things are, if you damage one, you can buy another one. It's the same layout every time. There are other templates. There are the Bosch templates that are adjustable. You can link them together for different size doors and different counts of hinges. Porter Cable makes one too that's, you build them like an erector set. And then there's some other companies that have come out with various hinge templates.
But these guys make them, they're not adjustable. They're made for every configuration. So this is a standard 3-hole, 3.5 inch butt hinge, which is a pretty standard door hinge for standard doors, but not a standard pattern or hinge for a lot of the kinds of doors that Jerry was talking about in these higher end places, where you're talking about 7 and 8 doors, like an 8 you probably have 2 pair of 4.5 at least.
1 3/4. We go up to 6 by 6.
Yeah, but you can't hang them with 2 pair. I mean, depending on the door. 8 3 8
Typically, we start off with 3, up to 7 foot. Anything over 7 foot goes to 4.
Yeah.
And then above 9/6, you go to 5.
And then it's not just butt hinges that are hung up. They get hung with saws hinges and blind hinges and pivot hinges and continuous hinges.
Here's one I brought. This was from the Bacara, an old one. This is a
Sauce type hidden hinge?
It's a Tectus, Simon's Work Tectus. It's adjustable in three directions.
Which is the greatest thing in the world because sauce hinges have no adjustment.
Yeah.
Pass it around, please.
But with those, you have to get 4 templates. You have to get for a right hand, you need one for the door, one for the jamb. For a left hand, you need one for the door, one for the jamb.
But they're individual templates, or are they full door templates?
Full size, full height.
Yeah, that camera? Yeah.
Are these the same templates that's out Atlanta?
Yeah.
That's a hidden hinge. It's mortise.
No, just the sides. And it also helps for finish to stick. Paint doesn't like to stick to a sharp edge. All right. Store.
Now, Jerry's used the template, called a butt template, to cut the mortises with a loose leaf butt hinges. Loose leaf because these pins come out. And the leaves get loose. One goes on the door and one goes on the jamb. And then the pen brings them together. Butt hinges. And so they're mortise flush. So he's setting the depth of cut on this plunge router for that thickness. Cut a mortise into here with the template. So this same template he's cutting these mortises for with this button above the door and the template flush to the door. There's a button on the end of it. That button is the reveal at the head. So that when the template goes onto the head, it butts up to the head and it creates that reveal. The thickness of that screw is what creates the reveal. And it cuts the same mortise. So that your hinges line up and your door goes in there with that reveal at the head. Every time.
That's the thought. That's the theory.
And this is the same router with a different base. With the plunge base.
Pretty much, yeah, same motor.
Yep. And there's a technique for this too. So that's set up. That's got a hinge template, right? That's not a bearing.
It's got bearings on it.
That's a bearing.
Oh yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
If you want to pass that around here. That way no one can cut themselves.
So we used to use those all the template guides with a template guide on the router, not as the base, and it is what went along the template, and then the cutter was inside the guide. Now we have bearing, so the bearing was on the template.
Well, not so much I have, because that's something I came up with doing the 3 bearings.
Yeah, fucking. Jerry's come up with this bearing, which replaces the router template, the template guide, which ended the way.
They'd never center right. So
They never center right. That's exactly right.
back in the day, the Porter cable routers I'd use specifically Porter cable. On the base, they'd have a countersink, and you couldn't adjust the base. So the router's not always dead center of the template guide. So which can create a problem when you're doing pairs of doors. You can actually have one higher than the other, even though you route it the same. Just that little bit of offset can change the difference in reveal.
Yeah, it's a real problem because the template guides mount to the router base, and there's no adjusting them for center. They're supposed to be milled the machine center, and sometimes they're not, and that's a real problem. This way, he's just dependent on the bearing. So the bearing rides on the template, the inside of that template cutout, and the knives cut, but they cut. So that's probably an 1/8 over because it cuts a 16 pin. So you just stack those bearings.
Yeah.
So you made that good.
Yeah. So when I go to Buena Tool, I try to buy up all the 5/8 bearings I can so no one else can use it. Well, between old employees and friends, other people are wise to it.
Do you ever resharpen your corner striker? And if you do, how do you do it?
With I have a diamond file that I carry with me.
Show them that corner chisel. Spring loaded.
Actually, I got two of them, so you guys can.
I've tried resharpening the corner one, and it seems like I made it work.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to
Have you guys seen this? Have you seen it? Yeah. They go all the way around? Yeah.
I'm going to pre-drill for the hinge screws.
And
You got-
a Vicks bit?
Yes, it's a self-centering bit made by Vicks, and
How do you spell that, guys? Very good.
so yeah, we pre-drill everything we can. Anytime we use a screw, we pre-drill for it, so we don't split, we don't break the screw off. You can break steel screws off in oak or in anything if you put too much power to it.
So one of the things that's important about how Jerry does this is he has a system in place. And he follows that system, so it's super economical, and he's refined the system to make it even more economical so that it really works. And so he doesn't forget, he does things in sequence, because there's mucho sequencing here, right? And
So
if you do it the same way, you don't get confused and hang the door wrong, or more is it, I mean, you could just as easily more is it this way.
Yeah.
You work on top of it.
So when we load up, we've got a 4-door buck that's spring loaded. You drop the door in, the weight of the door keeps it down. Once you lift it up, the spring will bring the jaw back up for the next door. And on that buck, there are letters or handings of the door, left hand, right hand, all the way through. So no matter what side you're on, that's going to be the hand of door that you're swinging when on the hinge side. So we try to do as many doors as we can in one place.
So you're only dropping left-hand doors in the bucks that
Well, we
say
can
left-hand,
we can
right?
do lefts or rights. So we can do all rights, all lefts, combination. When we do pairs, I like to set the pairs up right, left, and then right, left. So I'm in the middle, and I can just do laps right in the middle.
Yeah, having a system super important.
And then when I start, I try to start from right to left. When you go through, I'm right-handed, so when we go through and start feeding screws in, when you're standing on the correct side, you're always working in one direction. So I'm working towards the screws that are in my hands. I don't want to be working backwards to where I can't see.
Ergonomics.
And then if everybody's doing the same thing, then we get into a flow, through the buck, and nobody is in anyone's way.
Yeah.
So,
Think about it.
I mean, it's
A bunch of doors there.
the little things that if you're doing a bunch, if you're doing the same thing all year, it adds up. Okay. Now for this, I went the opposite direction just because the way the cutter goes on the roundover. If we're doing like a higher end door, a vertical fur door, if I come in this way, if I go from left to right, the direction of the cutter will lift the grain and you end up with a huge tear out. So what I'll usually do is I'll start on the right and I'll back cut it so that the cutter's not really lifting the material. It's pushing off, and then you can go back and do a cleanup cut. Okay, so that's good to go. I just need some screws.
Routing, edge routing, profile routing, a whole other ballgame.
So here's,
Routing here is mortising, which are the cuts that we leave the wood for hardware to recess into, usually